This is part 2 of the week 2 lecture, and I'm just going to be touching on the 4 phases of emergency management. And the 4 are mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, and you need to know them. Mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Now, for the sake of full disclosure, just simply Googling phases of emergency management may result in any number of different answers. In fact, even within a government website or a government publication, you can see that many different models have been published. So like right here, I've listed, in the transportation annex, it looks like they have 5 different ones. National Response Framework, they show, was at 5, and then even though there are 4 and a couple of them, they aren't exactly the same. So there's a lot of these that refer to the phases of emergency management in different ways. However, the 4 that I'm giving you is the most commonly accepted that I've found and understood phases, and I think you'll see that they are the most consistent across documents. So be aware that there are others, but the 4 that I'm giving you are the ones that you really should know. So let's start with the first one, mitigation. And mitigation refers to activities that reduce or even eliminate risks to people or property. Some disasters are avoided entirely if appropriate mitigation techniques are used. It also refers to the minimization of the consequences of an incident. Many emergencies certainly are not avoidable or even the effects, but often we realize that we could have taken measures to reduce the negative effect of the crisis, those consequences. So good mitigation strategies identify those measures before the emergency occurs. What you're looking at here is a tornado that took place in Newcastle, Oklahoma in 1999. The tornado produced winds that exceeded 250 miles per hour. There was an estimated $1.5 billion in damage done with 1,700 homes, 85 businesses, 3 churches, and 2 schools being destroyed or damaged. Worst of all is that 85 people were killed during this natural disaster. And sadly, lives may have been saved if there had been an adequate tornado shelter available. What resulted was a cooperative effort of the city and state governments along with FEMA to create such a tornado shelter. The lot was carefully chosen that was near the police department and a school. An architect was selected that could conform to FEMA standards, and the shelter was erected. It was designed to have a safe method of exit, including doors with triple hinges that swung inward instead of outward. Signage was also added that is able to clearly direct people to the shelter during severe weather. During subsequent drills, the community was able to get 850 students and other citizens inside the shelter in just 5 minutes. This is an example of the type of project that an emergency manager is involved in, from securing funding to coordinating with FEMA to ensuring the successful completion of the enterprise. In this case, it is an actual structure that is being designed to mitigate the consequences of a future emergency. Second is preparedness, and preparedness, you'll see here a range of tasks and activities to build, sustain, improve operational capability to prevent, protect against, respond to, and recover from crises. It is a continuous process among all levels of government, private and non-governmental organizations. You identify threats, determine vulnerabilities, and identify needed resources. So preparedness asks the question, when the next one happens, are we in a position to address it? Are we ready? Do we have what we need? Third is response, and as you can see here, it encompasses the activities that address short-term direct effects of an incident, and of course it involves the actual execution of the emergency operations plan, and it's designed to limit loss of life, other negative consequences. So response, of course, actually happens once the emergency is imminent or shortly after it's begun. The response begins to take place. And lastly is recovery, where the goal is to return the community back to its normal operations. These are not listed in order of priority, but these are the areas that the recovery effort focuses on. You can see they're trying to get back to economic stability, our infrastructure back in place, transportation, people able to get around, housing, environmental services, etc. These are the basics to the recovery effort once the emergency has ended. As part of the National Disaster Recovery Framework, FEMA has invested millions of dollars in teams of people across the nation to assist with long-term recovery. This graphic illustrates the proportion of events that have been supported by the long-term community recovery activities from 2004 to 2011. Of some interest is the fact that over half of them are flooding incidents, and you have your hurricane, then of same size tornado, and then some winter storms. And that brings us to the conclusion of the lecture.